They wanted me to give away my grandmother's apartment as a wedding gift. I said no. Now I have no family. I, 28M, never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get this out. Maybe to process it. Maybe to see if I'm really the villain my family has painted me to be. Either way, here's my story. The beginning. Grandmother. My grandmother was my favorite person in the world. I know that sounds like something people say at funerals to sound good, but I mean it literally. From the time I was a kid, she was my constant. Every Sunday, I'd take the bus across town to her apartment, a modest 2-bedroom place in a nice neighborhood that she and my grandfather had bought in the 1970s. Grandpa passed when I was 12, but Grandma stayed. She said the walls held too many memories to leave. I understood that, even as a kid. Those Sunday visits turned into a ritual. I'd bring her groceries, she'd insist on paying me back, and I'd insist on forgetting the money on her kitchen counter. I'd fix things around her apartment. Leaky faucets, squeaky doors, the radiator that made sounds like a dying animal every winter. We'd drink tea from her old china cups, the ones with tiny roses painted on them, and she'd tell me stories about her life. About fleeing her home country as a child. About meeting Grandpa at a dance hall. About saving every penny for 30 years to buy that apartment outright. This place isn't just walls and floors, she'd tell me. It's proof that hard work means something. That sacrifice means something. I'd nod, not fully understanding then. I understand now. My younger brother, 25M, rarely visited. When he did, it was quick, 15 minutes, maybe 30 if Grandma guilt tripped him into staying for tea. He always had excuses, schoolwork, friends, his girlfriend at the time. It's boring there, he told me once. She just talks about the old days. And her apartment smells old. I didn't argue with him. I just kept showing up. When Grandma got sick 3 years ago, cancer, the kind that takes its time, I was there. I drove her to chemotherapy appointments because she refused ambulances, too dramatic, she said. I spent nights at her apartment when she was too weak to be alone. I held a basin while she vomited, changed her sheets when she couldn't make it to the bathroom in time, and read to her from her favorite books when she couldn't sleep. My brother visited twice during her illness. 2 times in 18 months. The first time, he stayed for an hour and spent most of it on his phone. The second time was at the hospital, near the end. He cried. My parents cried. I just held her hand because someone needed to be strong enough to let her know it was okay to go. She passed on a Tuesday morning. I was there. My brother wasn't. When her will was read, there were no surprises for anyone who'd been paying attention. Her apartment, worth approximately $165,000 in today's market, went to me. Clear, legal, notarized. My brother received $5,000 in cash. My parents got her furniture and jewelry, modest pieces that held more sentimental than monetary value. The lawyer read the relevant section aloud. To my grandson me, I leave my apartment at address, with the hope that he will make it a home filled with as much love as I tried to fill it with. He earned this not through blood, but through presence. He showed up. That matters more than anything. I remember my brother's face when those words were read. Confusion, then realization, then something that looked almost like anger. But he said nothing. Not then. That was 2 years ago. The brother. I need to explain my brother to help you understand what came next. He was always the baby of the family, not just in age, but in treatment. The golden child. The one my parents coddled, protected, and subsidized at every turn. When he wanted to go to college, they paid. Full tuition, room and board, spending money. When he graduated and wanted a car, they bought him one. Not new, but nice. A reliable sedan that he complained wasn't cool enough. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs through community college. I took the bus for years because I couldn't afford a car. When I asked my parents for help once, just once, for textbook money, my father told me that struggle builds character and that I needed to learn the value of hard work. I learned it. My brother never had to. I don't say this to paint myself as a martyr. I say it because context matters. Because when my parents later accused me of being selfish, I needed them to remember who actually learned to sacrifice in our family. My brother got engaged last year. His fiancée is a piece of work. Beautiful, I'll give her that. Instagram perfect in every way. Designer bags, flawless makeup, the kind of aesthetic that screams expensive taste. She comes from money, her parents own some kind of business, I'm not sure what, and she expects to maintain that lifestyle. The problem is my brother makes $42,000 a year at an entry-level marketing job. His fiancée makes similar money as an administrative assistant at a law firm. Combined, They're comfortable but not wealthy. And she refuses to accept comfortable. I first met her at a family dinner 6 months into their relationship. She was charming, I'll admit. Knew all the right things to say. But I noticed how she steered conversations toward money, possessions, status. She talked about her friends' apartments, her friends' vacations, her friends' engagement rings. Everything was a comparison. Everything was about keeping up. My brother hung on her every word. When she'd make a joke, he'd laugh too hard. When she'd express a preference, he'd immediately agree. I watched him shrink beside her, becoming less himself and more a supporting character in her story. I said nothing. It wasn't my place. Then came the engagement. The ring was beautiful, a princess-cut diamond that must have cost 5 figures. I later learned our parents helped pay for it because my brother couldn't afford what his fiancée expected. That was the word used, expected. The wedding was planned for the following year. Expensive venue. Expensive catering. A photographer whose Instagram portfolio screamed, "You can't afford me." My parents were helping pay for that too, draining their retirement savings to fund a party that was more about the bride's vision than the couple's future. Then came the question that changed everything. Where would they live after the wedding? His fiancée had opinions. Strong ones. Renting was throwing money away. Living in a bad neighborhood was unacceptable. Her definition of bad was anywhere not featured in lifestyle magazines. A small apartment was out of the question. She needed space for her walk-in closet, her home office, her vision for their life. They looked at options. Everything in her acceptable range was wildly beyond their budget. The conversations became arguments. The arguments became silences. Then his fiancée visited my apartment for the first time. We had a small family gathering, my birthday, not that anyone remembered to bring a card. She walked through my grandmother's apartment, now mine, with an expression I can only describe as acquisitive. "This is exactly what I want," she said, trailing her fingers along the kitchen counters. "Perfect location, perfect size. You're so lucky." I felt uncomfortable but said nothing. She turned to my brother. "Why can't we find something like this?" He didn't answer. But he looked at me differently after that. Like I had something he deserved. The ambush. 4 months before the wedding, my parents invited me to dinner. "Just a family meal," my mom said. "It's been too long since we all sat together." I should have known better. When I arrived, my brother and his fiancée were already there. The table was set nicely. My mom had made my favorite meal, pot roast, the way Grandma used to make it. That should have been my second warning. We made small talk through the appetizers. Weather. Work. The wedding planning, stressful but exciting, his fiancée said, which struck me as ironic given who was paying for the stress. Then my father cleared his throat in that way he does when he's about to deliver what he considers wisdom. "We need to talk about the apartment," he said. I set down my fork. "What about it?" My mother reached over and patted my hand. "Honey, we've been discussing this as a family. Your brother is about to start a new life. He's going to have a wife, maybe children soon. He needs stability. A real home." "Okay," I said slowly. "And?" My father took over. "You're 28. Single. No serious relationship that we know of. You're young. You have time. You can rent somewhere, build your savings, buy something of your own someday." He paused. "We think you should transfer grandmother's apartment to your brother. As a wedding gift." I laughed. Genuinely laughed, because I thought it was a joke. A bad one, but a joke nonetheless. No one else was laughing. His fiancée was watching me with an expression of wounded expectation, like I'd already said no and she was prepared to be hurt by it. My brother wouldn't meet my eyes. My parents looked at me like they were waiting for me to do the obvious right thing. "You're serious," I said. "Completely," my father replied. "It's the right thing to do." The argument that followed lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of circular logic, guilt trips, and increasingly desperate attempts to rewrite history. The argument. That apartment was left to me. I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking under the table. Grandmother wanted me to have it. She put it in her will. She said, in the document, that I earned it. My mother shook her head. "Grandmother would want you to help your brother. She loved both of you equally. Family comes first." That's what she always said. "Family comes first," I repeated. Where was family when grandmother was dying? When I was at her apartment every night making sure she took her medication? When I was holding her hand at 3 in the morning because she was scared to sleep? I looked at my brother. You visited twice. Twice in 18 months. I was busy, he said, finally meeting my eyes. There was something defensive there, something that looked almost like shame but not quite. I had work. School. I couldn't just drop everything. I had work too. I had school too. I dropped everything anyway because she needed someone. You can't hold that against me forever. I'm not holding it against you. Grandmother held it against you. That's why she left me the apartment. That was her decision. Not mine. His fiancée chose that moment to speak. She'd been quiet until then, arranging her face in an expression of patient suffering, like she was a saint enduring the chaos of lesser people. I don't think it's fair, she said, her voice trembling slightly, that one brother has a $165,000 apartment while the other has nothing. We're starting a life together. We're building a future. What are you building? She looked at me with something that might have been contempt dressed up as hurt feelings. I'm building my life, I said. The same way I've always built it. By myself. See. She turned to my brother, reaching for his hand. This is what I was afraid of. Your family doesn't support us. They don't want to see us succeed. My brother squeezed her hand. Bro, I'm asking for help. Just this once. You have something I need. Why are you being like this? Like what? Like someone who doesn't want to give away their home. My father leaned forward. We paid for plenty of things for you growing up. Now it's time to give back to the family. That's when something in me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet breaking of whatever illusion I'd been holding on to about my parents' fairness. You didn't pay for anything for me, I said. Not one thing. I worked 2 jobs through school. I bought my own textbooks, my own food, my own clothes. You paid for his college, his car, his ring, his wedding. Everything he has came from you. Everything I have, I earned myself. And now you want me to give him the one thing I didn't have to fight for? The one thing someone loved me enough to give. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother's face crumpled. That's not true. We helped you plenty. Name one thing. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at my father. He was studying the tablecloth like it held the secrets of the universe. The point is, my father finally said, pivoting so hard I almost got whiplash, you're older. More established. Your brother is just starting out. The Christian thing to do, the family thing to do, is to help those who need it. I stared at him. You're invoking Christianity. Really? Where was that energy when I needed help? When I was eating ramen for 3 months because I couldn't afford groceries? When I asked you for textbook money and you told me struggle builds character? That was different. How? He didn't answer. My brother tried a different tactic. Grandmother wouldn't want us fighting over an apartment. She'd want me to have a good start in life. She loved me too. Then why didn't she leave it to you? I asked. She made a will. She hired a lawyer. She thought carefully about what to do with everything she'd spent her life building. And she chose. You don't get to override her choice because you don't like the outcome. His fiancée started crying. Delicate tears that somehow didn't smear her mascara. I knew it, she said between sobs. I knew your family didn't fully accept me. This just proves it. You'd rather your brother struggle than share what you have. What kind of family does that? My mother went to comfort her. My father gave me a look of pure disappointment. My brother sat there, helpless, caught between the woman he was marrying and the brother he was supposed to love. If you don't give your brother this apartment, my father said, his voice heavy with finality, we'll know where your priorities are. Don't expect to be welcome at the wedding. Don't expect to be part of this family. I never thought you'd choose a building over your own brother, my brother added. His fiancée lifted her head from my mother's shoulder. I'm not sure I can marry into a family that doesn't support each other. If your brother can't provide a home, maybe we need to reconsider everything. She looked at my brother as she said it. The implication was clear. Give me the apartment, or she walks. I stood up from the table. I'm not giving away my grandmother's apartment. Not to you, not to anyone. If that means I'm not family anymore, then I guess I was never really family to begin with. I walked out. I didn't look back. Update 1. The pressure campaign. The weeks that followed were among the worst of my life. My mother called daily. Sometimes multiple times a day. Each call was a variation of the same theme. I was being selfish, I was ruining my brother's life, I was betraying the family. She cried. She pleaded. She invoked grandmother's memory so many times that I had to stop answering her calls because it felt like a desecration. My father texted long, rambling messages about family values and the meaning of sacrifice. He quoted Bible verses at me. He told me stories about times he'd sacrificed for his brothers, stories I'd never heard before, which made me question their veracity. He said I was breaking my mother's heart. My brother's messages were shorter but sharper. Fiancé is having doubts because of you. If the wedding is cancelled, it's your fault. And, I can't believe you're doing this to me. And, you're going to regret this when you're alone and have no one. His fiancée posted on social media. Nothing that named me directly, but pointed enough that anyone who knew us would understand. Posts about toxic family members and red flags when meeting his family. Posts about people who don't understand what sacrifice means. Her followers commented with support and outrage on her behalf. I became the villain of a story I hadn't agreed to star in. Extended family got involved. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my selfishness. Your grandmother would be so disappointed, one aunt wrote. Family helps family. That's what we do. Another uncle called me directly to tell me I was being unreasonable and that I should think about someone other than yourself for once. I stopped answering calls. I muted most social media. I went to work, came home to my grandmother's apartment, and sat in the silence. Update 2. The investigation. About 3 weeks into the pressure campaign, something shifted in me. The initial hurt gave way to anger, and the anger gave way to something colder, curiosity. Why did they want this apartment so badly? Yes, it was valuable. Yes, it was in a good neighborhood. But their insistence felt desperate, almost frantic. There had to be more to the story. I started paying attention. Asked careful questions to mutual friends. Did some light social media archaeology on his fiancée's accounts. What I found was illuminating. His fiancée had approximately $23,000 in credit card debt. Designer bags, expensive clothes, trips with friends to photogenic destinations, all of it funded by plastic. Her Instagram was a carefully curated fantasy financed by money she didn't have. My brother had accumulated about $18,000 in his own debt, largely from trying to keep up with her lifestyle. Fancy dinners she expected. Gifts she hinted at. A ring she deserved. Together, they owed over $40,000 to credit card companies. Their combined income could barely cover their current rent plus minimum payments on their debt. They were drowning. I also learned something else. They couldn't actually afford to maintain grandmother's apartment if they had it. Property taxes in that neighborhood ran about $4,000 a year. Utilities in the older building averaged $200 a month. The building had recently announced an upcoming assessment for roof repairs, around $8,000 per unit. They didn't want a home. They wanted an asset. Something to show off, to leverage, to paper over the cracks in their financial foundation. They'd sell it within a year, I realized. Use the money to pay down debt, fund more lifestyle expenses, and end up right back where they started. I also found a post from his fiancée to a private group. Someone had screenshotted it and it made its way to me through the gossip vine. His family has an apartment they're giving us as a wedding gift. Finally marrying someone with actual assets, so. She thought it was a done deal. She was already counting my grandmother's home as her property. Update 3. The confrontation. I invited my brother to meet for coffee. Neutral ground. No parents, no fiancé. Just us. He showed up looking tired. There were circles under his eyes, and his clothes seemed looser than I remembered. Stress, weight loss, maybe. Or maybe just the stress itself. Thanks for coming, I said. I almost didn't. He sat across from me. Mom says I shouldn't talk to you. That you've made your choice. I have. But I want you to understand why. What's there to understand? You have something we need, and you're keeping it out of spite. It's not spite. I took a breath. I know about the debt. His face went pale. What? Your fiancé has $23,000 in credit card debt. You have about $18,000. You can't afford your current rent. You definitely can't afford to maintain that apartment. Property taxes alone would bury you, plus utilities, plus the assessment coming up. I watched him process this. You don't want a home. You want a bailout. That's... He stopped. Swallowed. How do you know that? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that I'm right. You want me to give you grandmother's apartment so you can either sell it or live in it until it bleeds you dry, and either way, you'll be back in the same position within a few years. Except I'll have nothing, and grandmother's home will be gone." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was smaller than I'd heard it in years. "She expects things. You don't understand. If I can't provide them, she'll leave." "Then let her leave." "I can't." He looked at me with something that might have been desperation. "I love her. And she loves me, she needs security. Stability. The apartment would give us that." "No. The apartment would give you another year, maybe 2, of pretending you can afford a lifestyle neither of you has earned. And then you'd lose it, and her, and you'd have nothing. At least this way, you lose her but you still have yourself." "You don't know that." "I know math. I know debt. I know that someone who puts you $40,000 in the hole before you're even married isn't going to suddenly become fiscally responsible because you have a nice apartment." He stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Give me the apartment, or I'll tell everyone you're the reason my marriage failed. Everyone will know you chose a building over your own brother." I looked at him. My baby brother. The boy I'd played with, protected, loved. The man he'd become, weak, scared, controlled by someone who saw him as a means to an end. "Your marriage will fail because your fiancé cares more about Instagram than reality. That's not my problem. I'm not setting myself on fire to keep you warm." "You're dead to me," he said. "I've been dead to this family for years. You're just making it official." He left without another word. We haven't spoken since. Update 4. The wedding. I wasn't invited to the wedding. I found out the date from a cousin who was still talking to me and felt awkward about the whole situation. The wedding happened, though not as originally planned. His fiancé's parents apparently had learned about the debt situation, I don't know how, and withdrawn their financial support. They weren't happy about their daughter marrying someone drowning in red ink, and they definitely weren't happy about the entitlement surrounding the apartment situation. Someone had talked. The venue changed to something more modest. The guest list was cut. The photographer was downgraded. His fiancée, I heard, was devastated, but making the best of it. My parents paid for everything. Their retirement savings. Their emergency fund. Everything they'd built over 30 years went into a party for a marriage that was already cracking at the foundations. At the reception, his fiancée apparently told several people that I had stolen my brother's inheritance. That grandmother had meant to leave the apartment to both of us, but I had somehow manipulated her at the end. That I was jealous of their love and wanted to sabotage their happiness. Some people believed her. Some people saw through it. My brother said nothing to correct her. He just smiled and nodded and danced and pretended everything was fine. They moved into a small one-bedroom rental after the honeymoon. His fiancée described it to her Instagram followers as cozy and temporary while we save for something bigger. The comments were supportive. The reality was grimmer. Update 5. 1 year later. It's been a year since the wedding. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened and what it means. My brother and his wife, I suppose I should call her that now, are struggling. Their debt has grown, not shrunk. They fight constantly, from what I've heard through the family grapevine. She blames the apartment situation for every problem. If we had the apartment, we wouldn't be fighting about money. If we had the apartment, I wouldn't be depressed. If your brother wasn't so selfish, we'd have a real life. My brother apparently just takes it. Absorbs her anger like a sponge, apologizes, promises things will get better. They never do. My parents are financially gutted. Between the wedding and the ongoing loans to my brother that will never be repaid, they've depleted most of their savings. Last month, my mother called me for the first time in nearly a year. "We need help," she said. "Your father's car broke down. We can't afford to fix it. Can you lend us some money?" I let the silence stretch. "After everything," I said, "you're asking me for money? You're still our son." "Am I?" "You told me I wasn't family. You told me not to come to the wedding. You chose him every time, for my entire life. And now that you need something, I'm your son again. That's not fair." "None of it was fair. That didn't stop you. I didn't give them the money. Maybe that makes me cruel. Maybe it makes me someone who's finally learned that love without boundaries isn't love. It's just exploitation waiting to happen." I'm sitting in my grandmother's apartment as I write this. My apartment now, though it still feels like hers in so many ways. I kept her chair, the old armchair by the window where she'd sit and watch the neighborhood change over the decades. I've reupholstered it, but the frame is the same. The one she chose with my grandfather 50 years ago. Her photos are still on the wall. I've added some of my own now, mixing our histories together. There's one of us from about 5 years ago, me and her at her kitchen table, both of us laughing at something I can't remember. It's my favorite picture I have. Sometimes I talk to her photo. Tell her about my day. About the promotion I got at work. About the woman I've started seeing, someone kind, someone grounded, someone who thinks the apartment is lovely, but doesn't seem to be calculating its resale value in her head. Maybe that sounds crazy. Maybe it is crazy. But it's more conversation than I've had with my actual family in a year. Reflection. People ask me sometimes if I miss my family. It's a complicated question. I miss the family I thought I had. The one where parents loved both sons equally, even if they showed it differently. Where brothers looked out for each other and had each other's backs. Where a wedding was about love and commitment, not real estate and Instagram aesthetics. But that family never existed. I just believed in it longer than I should have. Grandmother left me that apartment because I was there. Every week. Every holiday. Every hospital visit. My brother couldn't be bothered, and now he wants her home because his wife thinks she deserves it. But deserving isn't about wanting. It's about showing up. They paid for his college, his car, his ring, his wedding. I worked for everything I have. And they call me selfish because I won't give away the one thing I didn't have to fight for. His wife cried at that dinner and said the family doesn't accept her. She'd known us for 2 years and wanted a $165,000 gift. That's not family. That's entitlement with a ring on it. My brother said grandmother would want him to have a good start in life. But grandmother saw him ignore her for years. She made her choice in full knowledge of who each of us was. He just doesn't like what she chose. They said I chose a building over my brother. But I chose to honor my grandmother's wishes over my brother's wife's Instagram aesthetic. Those are different things. She has $23,000 in debt from shopping. He has $18,000 from trying to keep her happy. They wanted my apartment to paper over a marriage built on credit cards and pretense. I would have been funding their fantasy, not their future. Mom said, the Christian thing is to help. Where was that energy when I was working 2 jobs while my brother got everything paid for? Christianity only applies, apparently, when they want something from me. The truth. Grandmother used to sit in this chair and tell me stories about her life. About working double shifts as a seamstress when she first came to this country. About saving for 30 years, never buying anything new, never taking vacations, just to own something that couldn't be taken away. This apartment isn't just walls, she told me once. It's proof that sacrifice means something. That showing up means something. That love isn't just words. It's what you do when no one is watching. She left it to me because she trusted me to understand that. To honor her work. To remember that she existed and that her life mattered. Everyone wanted me to give it away like it was nothing. Like her 50 years of sacrifice meant nothing. Like my years of caring for her meant nothing. I kept my promise to her memory. I lost my family for it. Sitting here now, in her chair, in her home that's now my home, I think she'd understand. She knew what family was supposed to be. She also knew what it actually was. That's why she left the apartment to me. Not just as a gift. As a message. You're the only one who showed up. I showed up for her. She showed up for me. Everyone else just showed up when they wanted something. That's the lesson. That's what this apartment really means. And no wedding gift demand, no pressure campaign, no family ultimatum will ever take that away. The apartment is quiet now. I've made it mine, new paint, some new furniture, my own touches everywhere. But her photos stay on the wall. Her chair stays by the window. Her spirit stays in these rooms she loved for so long. Some nights, when the city is quiet and the streetlights cast shadows through the curtains the way they must have for decades, I swear I can almost hear her voice. You showed up, dear. That's all that matters. You showed up. I did, Grandma. I always will. TLDR, Grandmother left me her apartment after I cared for her for years while my brother ignored her. Brother is getting married to a materialistic fiancée who expected the apartment as a wedding gift. Parents demanded I give it to him. I refused. Lost my family. Kept my home. Kept my promise. No regrets.